Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and in partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. In this two-part series, Jack Schonely and I talk with Kodey Bogart. During this series, we explore Kodey's career and impact within the aviation industry, highlighting her remarkable path from military service as a Black Hawk pilot to her current role as an industry safety expert and author. During the conversation, Kodey shares her insights on the critical importance of safety practices in aviation, the vital role helicopters play in emergency response, and the collaboration between drones and helicopters during disaster situations. We'll discuss the significance of community service, particularly in the context of hurricane responses. Kodey reflects on her time in flight school and military deployment, emphasizing peer support and the evolution of crew responsibilities. She recounts memorable missions and the unique camaraderie formed during high-stress situations, alongside challenges faced during the transition to civilian life. We'll also dive into the pressing issues within law enforcement aviation, such as recruitment and retention, and explore the advocacy for women in aviation. Kodey also discusses her children's book series, Helo Girls, which aims to educate and inspire children. Thank you to our sponsors, Shotover, Garmin, and CNC Technologies.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, John Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
So you go and spend time as a CFI, and then eventually you wind up at a law enforcement agency. Can you talk about how you moved into that law enforcement role and what your experience was there?
I think I just saw a job opening, and I had been at the flight school for a couple of years. I was kind of looking for a little bit of a change. The flight school was actually 2 hours from where I lived, so I would come down and stay with my mom Monday through Friday, then go home on the weekends, and that gets really old very quick, as I'm sure you both know. So I wanted to be closer to home, and so the sheriff's office in the next county over had a position. And unique to this organization too is the pilots and the TFO are civilians, so I wasn't a sworn deputy. So that was an opportunity for me, which I thought was really exciting. So I applied for the position and went on the flight test and all that. And it was really good. What I found really kind of funny hindsight is during this time, when I first went on the interview, I was not pregnant. And when they called to offer me the job, so the guy asked me, I was like, hey, do you want this job? I'm like, yes, I would love it. And I was like, but I do need to tell you, I found out last week that I am pregnant. And his comment was, like, I still have to hire you now because I already told you about it. And I was like,
oh, jeez.
Thanks.
Oh,
thanks for
ouch.
that.
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, I accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy the law enforcement mission. It's so rewarding. I think even just if I was out on a patrol and someone else had a car pulled over on the side of the road, nothing going on the radios, no issues with the car, but we would just orbit a little bit and just kind of give a nod to the ground officer, like, hey, you're not alone. You know, we're up here to help as well.
I remember being on the ground and having that happen, being that officer in a car stop, waiting for your back, and the air unit goes overhead. You're like, okay, you take a little deeper breath now. And not that you're relaxing, but you know that someone's there to help you if something goes wrong. And yeah, it's a pretty reassuring feeling to be the one on the ground and experience
great
that.
feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine being a ground officer out there all by yourself. You know, it's a crazy world.
It is. Yep, and doesn't seem to be getting any less crazy as we go.
Nah.
Can you brought up the fact that it was a civilian TFO as well? Can you talk about that and how that TFO kind of navigated the world of the courts and kind of what that looked like?
Yeah, so we were also a Part 135 air ambulance. So we would do the law enforcement mission. If a medical call would come up, that would take precedence over the law enforcement call. And so the TFO, they would run the FLIR, all our camera systems. They would speak on the radio to all the ground officers when we were on pursuit or whatever. They would handle all that stuff, which is way more than I ever wanted to handle. So I'll take the right seat. Thank you. But when we were on our 135 call, they were also a medic. So they would get out and then they would facilitate care for the patient in the back of the aircraft. And we flew, the sheriff's office, when I was there, they had 3 Bell 407s. So another really funny note, again, I'm small, so I didn't weigh enough to fly single pilot up front in a Bell 407. So we would show up on a med scene, and I would friction the, put it down at idle, friction the controls, and while my medic was out assessing the patient and getting them prepped to load on the aircraft, I would go to the luggage compartment. I grabbed out 2 25-pound weights, and I'd lug them up to the front seat, and I'd have to buckle them in the front seat so I could fly up front.
That's funny.
All the ground officers loved that. They would definitely poke fun at me. But their TFO was multifaceted.
Wow.
Jack, did you ever have that problem?
No, never had that issue.
That's funny.
Or I couldn't take, severely large patients. They would tell me their weight, and I'm like, nope, this is the cutoff weight I can take for CG.
You said something that resonates with me. You talked about, the left seat, how tough that job is. And we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
The TFO job is very, very tough, especially in a multi-mission scenario where you're not only a TFO, but you're a medic.
Yeah.
You're a crew chief, whatever the multi-mission aspect of that is. There's so much that goes with being proficient in those different roles. It's mind-boggling, and it's interesting for me because I didn't know how hard that position was going into it. I thought it was going to be a walk in the park, and little did I know that it is not a walk in the park. In fact, It's the opposite of that. So,
yeah, and I think it's really hard too. I always felt bad for the TFO because if you think they're on the camera, they're outside, the vestibular system really mess with it. They're constantly moving their head around while you're navigating the aircraft around and it's moving. I mean, it's a physical piece as well, challenging. And as much knowledge as they have, and here I am trying to inundate them with some aviation knowledge, and they're already at capacity with all the stuff they're doing, all the calls and what that looks like. They're amazing at what they do.
Like a good story, Kodey. I'm trying to do something here. I'll get with you back in a minute. Just oversaturated with tasks, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
When you think back to all the calls and missions you were a part of when you were doing the law enforcement mission, is there one that stands out as really impactful that you really enjoyed being a part of?
So again, I love air ambulance, right? So when I stopped, I left the sheriff's office to go back to the flight school to manage contracts, and I eventually became a chief pilot there. But my last mission there, before going back, was taking a young child who was severely burnt into Winnie Palmer in Orlando. So that was memorable. It's from a law enforcement perspective. Again, I love comedic value. So in the Daytona area, so at the time they weren't able to pursue, right? So you're not supposed to chase a car or whatever. In this situation, some people were leaving a gas station and they stole money or stole beer or something, and they got in their car and they were on their escape out of the gas station. They hit a police car, right? So now we find ourselves, everyone's chasing this car now because they've injured this cop or whatever. And so we're going down the interstates, following the car and all that. And we help them, talk about where to put out the spikes to help, deflate the tires and all that. That never works. But we get south of our county and we're actually coming in towards the Space Center area. So I was like, we're going to have to hand this off. I can only go so far up here. Right before that airspace, the car went off the interstate, and then where they pulled off was a dirt road. It was all muddy. And so they're bouncing around in all these mud puddles and pits and stuff, and the cop car is following it. A few of them were, but the first cop car that was following them, it got into this water puddle, and it the trunk popped open, and the car stalled or whatever in the puddle, and some other cop cars were able to get around it. So that was funny. Because there's just things you don't plan for. The guy was, trying to pursue this vehicle. I get it. You're not thinking about how deep is this water I'm going into. So anyway, when it comes to that, you follow the person who's driving the car because you don't know if the passengers are willing participants in what's happening, right? So the driver gets out and he takes off running into this wooded area. And it was really nice to be able to follow them. In fact, I pretty much hovered over the treetop just because it was, I was really trying to follow them. But then you can see the guys are out of the cars now and their weapons are drawn. And I'm just slowly backing away from the guys so that you can hear the commands from the officers on the ground. I really liked that one because it was funny. There was so much going on between, our county, then transitioning into another county. And then at the same time, my medic, again, being outside and then inside and outside, I was doing like this weird, like not weird, it's just like a little more maneuver to get into a better position. And he started having one of the illusions, and I don't remember what it was, but he felt like he was tumbling. And he's like, Kodey, I think you're not doing something right with the helicopter. And I was like, all right. I was like, I am at it. My heading's good. My attitude is fine. I was like, we're just fine. I was like, but maybe, you focus outside the helicopter on something because I think you're experiencing, this. And to be able to talk through that at the same time that we're going through trying to pursue this suspect on the ground I thought that was a really great little mission, that one.
I think that's not uncommon for newer TFOs to experience that.
Yeah.
We kind of test for that in some ways when somebody comes up and expresses interest in coming to aviation. We'll take them on a flight and see if they experience that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't always, rule it out that it's going to happen. For you, Jack, with all the candidates that you have come up on the loan and whatnot, what percentage of candidates would you say experienced something similar to that during their flights?
I'm not sure of a percentage, but it was a regular occurrence. Just getting airsick in general happened fairly regularly. And for some, it lasted a day or two. We were lucky because we had them for a month. So there were people that got sick for a month. And I'm thinking of names. They were great people, but they just could not do it because they were sick. One of them, one day, this is a funny story. We told them, hey, you're going to struggle here. It's been a week. You've gotten sick on every flight for a week. You can't learn when you're feeling like that. There's no way you can learn. This is a hard job. You might want to reconsider this position. No. And so the weekend goes, he comes back and he goes for a flight and they land and the pilot goes, hey, you didn't get sick today. Yeah, I took Dramamine. And he goes, oh. He goes upstairs. Now he's supposed to be doing his log. Next thing you know, he sits on one of the chairs and boom, he's out cold snoring, because the Dramamine, it made him drowsy and now he's sleeping. We go, sorry, man. Sorry, this is not going to work. So they're out there. There's people that work through it though. I know pilots at Air Support that on their first couple flights as a tactical flight officer that said, no, I'm never going to be here. I'm getting sick. And after 2 or 3 days, they went, oh, and they got over it.
And they worked through
and
it.
They ended up being a pilot. So you never know. Everybody's different. Some people can get through it. Some people can't. But it is a factor.
Yeah, my TFO was the first time he'd ever experienced that. And so I like that he trusted me, like, hey, yeah, okay, she has the aircraft under control. But then, he worked right through it and we were fine from that point forward.
That's cool. I'm interested to hear the answer to this next question. I think being in the industry and having conversations with folks that have been primarily in this industry the whole career lends to a specific answer to the question of, what do you see as being the challenges facing law enforcement aviation today? Being that you've been a part of so many different segments within the aviation community and seen so many different things. During your time and now having some time to reflect, what do you think are the challenges that are facing law enforcement aviation as it exists today?
No, that's a very good question. I know we talked a bit about economics. A lot of organizations have a hard time retaining good, competent pilots because they're not compensated for their knowledge and expertise, and they're not treated as knowledgeable or an expert in the industry. They're treated almost like second class sometimes. I think that's a huge challenge. When it comes to law enforcement, you're on the county's dime, right? So some might say, oh, if we just get rid of these helicopters and we could just go to drones and we're going to save millions and millions of dollars, but not really thinking about, what they're losing by not having that asset anymore. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. The more funding gets cut from law enforcement. I don't know right now how recruitment's going, in the law enforcement world. Are people wanting to be, become ground officers anymore? I don't know. Is recruitment retention, an issue?
It's not going well.
Yeah.
There are departments that are offering tens of thousands of dollars. And I even saw one recently that was more than that for people to come to their department. And they think, the city council people and the mayors and all those people think, oh, we're going to get a long list. And then they don't get anybody applying because of the conditions there. And it's a defund the police
Yep.
department. And it's a department that doesn't have a supportive mayor, city council, district attorney, all that. And people go, I don't care how much you're offering to come on over there. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
It's a big problem, Kodey. It really is. And you mentioned how pilots, we've talked to people about this where they say they bring in pilots, and even internally where they promote officers to pilot. And one of the things that they worry about is we're going to make this person a pilot and they're going to bolt because they're going to make more money flying the same aircraft, doing something else. And it's a huge problem in certain departments, huge problem. And
Yeah, that's
it's all
unfortunate.
about money. Yeah.
I'd like to think one of the redeeming factors of the industry is the mission set that we are a part of.
Yes.
It's very unique, and it's something you don't really get to do in many other places. So I think if you've got the itch to serve, that's very attractive, and sometimes can override the desire to chase money.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you look at the airline industry and what they're offering for a lot of folks, and that's starting to dwindle, and that's changing. But as it stands, I mean, why not leave? Especially if you've got a bad leadership cadre and a bad cultural environment that you're working in. Why not leave that agency and go fly for an airlines where you're not going to have that, and it's going to be much different.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that we're gonna battle for quite a while. Unfortunately,
Sad but true.
Yeah.
And I'm reading your mind, John. You know I am.
Yeah.
We're thinking of someone in some place.
Yeah.
And it's sad. A
Yeah.
quality human being, an incredible pilot that is in the exact situation, leaving the industry, and it's law enforcement's loss, and it was preventable. If we're thinking of a couple people, as a matter of fact, in our heads right now, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Leadership's a big part of that, and that's something that's really hard to overcome. But I think it starts, Kodey, where we started to talk about recruitment. We bring these folks to the front door, and I think we've really got to make a concerted effort to start developing their leadership skills once they enter the front door, not waiting till they're in the last half of their career or last third part of their career to really start leaning into them and training this leader and developing this leader. I think it's really important to start there. So hopefully we see some changes. I think that'd be great. Man, it's really cool to pick your brain again, being a part of so many different segments within our industry. You've seen a little bit of everything. I want to talk a little about the company you founded and how these different experiences have kind of lent to your ability to teach and speak to those as far as a consultant. Can you talk about your desire to start the company and what you're doing with it?
Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD-500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275heli.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's KB Solutions. It's just my consulting firm. So when I was at the flight training school, I was in a position as a chief pilot for a bit, and then I was moved over. There were some changes within the organization. I was moved over to be a flight safety officer and the test pilot. And so the point I was focusing on when I was doing that was really revamping our test pilot program, because we would do the same thing we would do with flight instructors. And they would say, hey, you're a brand new flight instructor. We don't have students for you yet. Here, why don't you go test fly this helicopter? And that just absolutely floored me. Again, coming from my military perspective, I'm like, they don't know, the more you fly an aircraft, the more you hear every move, every vibration, you feel it. You can feel it in your toes for those low frequency. You can feel the high frequency ones. You just have experience under your belts, right? So it was frightening a bit to me that we would just say, hey, just because you don't have students, you're going to go test fly today. And so I really worked at revamping what that program looked like. And I realized these were still the young, professionals we had to do the test flights. So let's actually run them through a training program. Let's have them work in maintenance a little bit so they understood the system more better than they had previously. Just expand on that knowledge a bit more, and then do flight tests with them. And, some sort of standardization, right? would help.
Yeah.
So I revamped that program, but I actually went to my ops, one of the ops guys, and I said, listen, I am doing safety and maintenance test pilot. And these are two jobs. and they both need full attention. And he's like, well, which job do you like? And I was like, I love safety. I don't know. First of all, I'm a nerd. I love regulations. I could read my AR 95-1 all the time and I wouldn't fall asleep, or the FAR aim, right? So I just love it. No, something's wrong with me. Give me a good glass of wine and a regulation, call it good. No. But so I was like, oh, I love safety. So I was in the safety position for a while and that was going really well and I loved it. This particular company was experiencing a reduction in force across the globe because of the oil and gas industry and the cost of oil and what all that was happening. So that was like 2017, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I got riffed. I was lucky because there were thousands of people before me, but I got riffed, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm pregnant. No one's gonna hire me. So my husband was like, he's like, man, you like safety so much. He's like, and you're so social and you know everybody. He's like, why don't you just start your own business? And I was like, oh my God, I could start my own business. So I did. I just kind of leveraged, all the stuff that I had learned out when I was with this company and, my connections that I had. Again, I am very social. I go into a room not knowing anybody and I leave knowing everybody. I love people. You're going to learn so much. You're either going to be like, oh, I love that trait, I'm going to take that on, or be like, oh, I don't like that trait. I now know what not to be, right? So you can learn something from everybody. And so I just started doing that. And I had some few friends in the industry who were working at some good companies. And I was like, hey, do you have a safety management system? Because that's my sweet spot. I love SMS. And they were like, yeah, we do. We could actually need an audit of that program. I was like, oh, let me bid on, being an auditor and coming in to audit your program. Or I work with other companies who don't have an SMS, but they really want one. And I try to help, work with them on scaling that and what that looks like. So that's really what drove that. And I've been doing that ever since, late 2017 to early 2018.
That's awesome.
Right? And just improving aviation safety through training and consulting. I remember back when I was at the company before the USHST, it started there. They want to, reduce aviation accidents or helicopter accidents by those 80%. And I personally took that to heart too. I was like, well, how can I help with that? What can I do? Because it's hard. It's hard to see, especially in the helicopter world, it's that 1 degree of separation. If there's an incident or accident, if I don't know him, one of you know him, that's hard to see. So why can't we get better at the things that we do? Why are we still doing the things that we know aren't the best? So let's work on that. So that's that driving force for me, is like, I just want to get better. I want to help other people be better.
From your perspective, what is one thing that kind of sticks out as either whether it's cultural or regulatory or whatever in our industry? What kind of keeps us in this position where we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again?
I think it's a culmination of a few things, right? So we have more senior pilots who are retiring or leaving the industry for whatever reason. We have younger people coming up, which is fine too. But, they don't have the tribal knowledge or the history under their belts. And then the people who should be educating them are maybe no longer in the industry. I think we come from an industry that's very full of self-pride, right? That type A personality, and I can do it, and I got this, and I don't need anybody else. And I think it's teaching people it's not just about you. It's not just you and the aircraft. There's other people there. Teaching them to be more open and to communicate. Even organizations today, I just, on a call the other day, and one organization was like, oh, we don't want people from this other organization because they might, take some more stuff, right? It wasn't just like that. I'm embellishing. But who cares if, let's share knowledge. If you're doing something in your organization, just like another organization, I guarantee you have the same pain points. So let's talk about them. You don't have to divulge secrets. You don't have to divulge names, but what's going on? How did you recover from it? What did you do? Maybe I did something different that may work for you, or you did something different that will work for me. And let's communicate, right? Safety is purely communication, right? It's gathering data and communicating about it. This is what happened. This is what we think about it. This is what we prevented, or this is what did occur. And so we, implemented this sort of mitigation to hopefully not have that event reoccur again. And then we go back. Hey, did it ever occur again? Yes, no. If it did, great. Let's do another mitigation. Or maybe we looked at it the wrong way. We need to reassess that. Yeah. Or it fixed it. Great, we're done with that one. Let's continue on. It's just talking. Upper management talking to lower level, not being afraid of upper management, right? And I think that takes, again, the upper management piece of not being a blame culture and really looking holistically. Just because someone does something in an organization doesn't mean they did something wrong. They didn't go in there with intent, right? Maybe it was an oversight for whatever reason. Let's ask about it. I was teaching a class a while back, and it was a group of managers, and one manager was, a whole room full of managers I'm talking about safety management with. And the guy's like, what do I do? I have this one employee who's consistently late right now. And I was like, oh. And I was like, did you ask him why he's late? He's like, no, he didn't. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
Like, so here you are in a room, of managers, and you're frustrated. You are frustrated. Yeah. And so I'm sure you're sending some vibes to that employee who's probably experiencing some frustration too, but let's learn why that person's late. Like, maybe their spouse is sick and they have childcare drop-off duties this week when they wouldn't normally. Now, I would hope employees could vocalize those things. But as leaders, we often have to say, what's different about this situation? And then the organization could say, hey, all right, so your spouse is sick and you're on, kid drop off for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to adjust your schedule so it doesn't affect you. So instead of coming in at 8, now you can come in at 10. You might, you're just going to stay a little later, but it helps the other crews as well because now they have as many people they need to be working on something. Just communicate, people.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're describing is interesting. I feel like there's a really unique parallel between the development of a good safety culture and the development of a good leadership cadre. You talk about when it comes to leadership, I think I always go back to Terry Mauchi talking about checking your ego at the door.
Yep.
I think that's one of the most important things as an operator, as a leader, talking about safety culture, not being afraid of being corrected, if that's the right term. Constructive criticism is really important.
Yep.
It's the reason why we do debriefs all the time is to figure out how we do better. And it seems like when it comes to audits, for example, a lot of agencies are like, I don't want someone else coming in, might expose something and make us look bad. And while that's true, I guess at the root of what's happening, the reality is it's making you better. It's just exposing ways that you can improve as an agency. And I think we're all looking for those incremental improvements. Even if it's 1% improvement in what we're doing, I think we're all looking for that. Yeah.
It definitely helps for your auditor to have the right attitude. For example, I do some work with Basque and I love Rick. He's great. But he thinks about auditing just like I do. When I go in to audit someone, it's, hey, I am part of your team. Thank you for bringing me here today. Part of a safety management system is continuous improvement. So it's not like I'm doing an audit and you did this wrong and you did this wrong and this is wrong. It's like, hey, I found these non-conformances or things where things aren't just right where they should be to be in line with what your objectives are. So let's address that. Let's look at it and see how we can fix it together, right? I'm not just trying to, put the blame on an organization for not doing something, but you might have a bucket of oil on the shop floor that you've been walking past for 5 years because it becomes a statue after a week or two, So you just don't see things when you're on the inside. But if auditors would just go in and say, hey, I'm a part of your team. You brought me in. I'm here to help, not say you've done X, Y, and Z wrong,
If there's a new leader listening or somebody's listening who isn't quite sure what an audit looks like, but they think they might want one, can you kind of give us an overview of what an audit looks like from your perspective and some of the recommendations you might make as a result of an audit?
Yeah. So, an audit is really just inviting someone in with a different perspective or fresh eyes to look at your program, to say, hey, you are operating the way that you think you're operating, or hey, for 90% of what you do is great. There's a little error here. We're missing a couple of things, either, they're incorrect or just absent, or, you're doing it, but we could do it a bit better. We can improve upon it, right? So an audit is just a fresh set of eyes to come in and really, as leaders, to say, hey, work is actually being accomplished as I think it is, right? Work as done versus work as what you think it is, right? Because we know employees on the ground do a job a certain way, but leadership might not know you do it that way, but they envision it, that you're this amazing, stellar stuff is happening. They may not know if you don't have certain tools to do the job, right? Because they're not doing it every day like you are, right? So an audit is just a fresh set of eyes to come in to help you as a leader understand that your organization is operating as you think it is and should be.
I like that. It's simple, isn't it? Yeah. It's really a simple concept. That sounded like a very complicated question that you just simplified by saying it's a fresh set of eyes, and that's all it is. It made me immediately think of the firearms cadre that I'm a part of at the Oregon Police Academy. When I first went there, I went there reluctantly because I'm not a real good shooter. I'm an average shooter, but they said, "No, you're a good instructor. We want you." I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And within a month or two, I realized I really love this. It was a good set of people, some really outstanding leadership. And the leader of that cadre came to me one day and said, "Hey, listen to me. You've been around, you've been doing this a long time. You got a lot of gray hair. Not firearms instruction, but law enforcement. And you have had firearms instruction." He said, "Anything you see in here, you better come to me and tell me if we're doing something that's kind of off or unsafe or stupid." He said, he used the words you just used, Kodey. He said, "You're the fresh set of eyes here. And I value that greatly." Yep. And he said, "Now, and you know me good enough that you can do that." And his name's Noel. And I went to Noel a couple times and said, "Hey, this," and I would tell him something. He'd go, "Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. That's what I'm talking about. Your fresh set of eyes. It's not because of your experience in firearms training. It's because of your fresh set of eyes looking at something in a different perspective as the new person. And I invited that information." That's the key. A lot of these leaders don't want to hear that information. Right. If I went to Noel, now, he's the way he is. I could have done this without him prompting me to do that. I could have gone to Noel and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm seeing something here that just seems odd to me. Why do you do this?" Yep. And he wouldn't have been offended. He would have thanked me. There's a lot of leaders, as we all know, that would have gone, "Hey, you're the new guy.
Yeah,
shut up.
I know
go
better
do your
than
job." Yep, yeah. "I know better than you. Shut up. Go do your job. You're the new guy. You don't know anything. I've seen you shoot. You're not that great." But he didn't do that because he's a good leader. Yeah. He's an incredible leader. So that the fresh set of eyes, it's true on everything. It's so true on everything.
Yeah, I'll go into an organization and teach. I'll talk about safety with the employees and help teach them so they understand what a safety management system is, so they understand a hazard and a risk and how to define that. But I'll ask, like, who's the most recent employee in here? And someone will eventually, it'll go through a couple hands and it'll be the last person. And I look at everybody in the room. I'm like, they are right now your most valuable asset.
Yes.
I was like, you might be annoyed by everything they're saying to you. I was like, but listen. I was like, because they're seeing things that you just haven't seen because you've been there for so long.
Yeah, it's so true. No matter what the business is, either. We talked about this with Clint Pulver with new employees being valuable, and that you have to listen to everybody.
Yep.
That sometimes they're the best perspective because they haven't been tainted,
right?
And they haven't been embedded into the habit or the culture that may not be the right culture. They're not embedded yet. They're new, and that you should invite questions from them, and invite comments from them. It's exactly what you're describing, Kodey, and it's such a simple thing, but ego gets in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure does.
It does.
And Jack, it's also a great opportunity. So maybe the way the organization is doing it, maybe they have tried everything and it really is the most accurate for them. Then it's a teaching opportunity for the employee of like, hey, this is why we do it this way. And we're glad you're on board to help us continue it, So it really goes both ways, but they have such a valuable resource, a new fresh set of eyes are.
Given all the companies and agencies that you've worked with, what do you see as a common trend or theme when it comes to some of the audits and some of the findings that are coming out of those audits or the times where you're consulting with them?
So another great question. My brain instantly goes to most organizations we go into audit from our safety perspective are doing everything that they can, right? 90% of organizations, even if you don't have an SMS is a safe organization. But you want to be able to capture that though. Like, how do I show that I'm being safe? Like if I'm looking for approval from the FAA or through YASA or, some sort of third-party approval provider, what does that look like? Or even your insurance company. Do I have employees who feel free to voluntarily report incidents or events that are happening in the organization? because your frontline employees are more likely to highlight those latent conditions that management will never see, right? So usually the things where deficiencies would be, they're just not capturing the information. Are they meeting once a year for, a safety review board, or twice a year, or whatever they want to do? Well, good, then let's track that. Write down that you did it, write who was in the room, write what was discussed, and then if there's anything that comes out of that, feed that back into the organization. If there are things that needed to be fixed that were found or something, feed it back, capture that information. A lot of organizations are doing safe things. They're just not capturing that information. And without data, you don't really have a safety management system, right? So I think organizations can also really benefit from helping the first line employees, those frontline employees, understand an SMS. If I go into an organization, I'm like, SMS this and hazard this and risk that and normalization of deviance, they're gonna be like, what? We have no idea what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So let's just go in with some generic, really easy to understand SMS introduction. Let's talk about key terms and definitions. Let's talk to the employee and say, this is your role in the organization. You're a maintainer or whatever it might be, but you're also part of our safety program. So what I expect from you as an employee is if you see something, say something, report it. Let us know so we can correct it and fix it. And by the way, we thank you for that, and we're not going to blame or punish you, right? Unless it's that malintent stuff. There's a whole another piece, right, with people with nefarious attitudes. But most people don't come to work looking to do harm or to do something wrong, right? They want to do a good job. So let's foster that communication.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, especially in aviation, most folks that come to aviation are highly driven.
Yep.
And that drive, they're driven to succeed. So I think tapping into that is critical. It's really interesting hearing your perspective again, because you've seen so many different segments within our industry and have spoken to so many different segments. One thing I want to get into now is talking about advocacy for women in aviation. You've done a lot of that through a bunch of different channels. And again, going back to recruitment and retention, I really think as an industry, we're missing the mark. We're not leveraging half of our population in these recruitment and retention efforts that we're undertaking. Can you talk about that a little bit and what some of your thoughts are as far as how do we engage women in this industry better than we are doing now?
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com.
Yeah, I think if I was definitely to say a law enforcement perspective is get out in front of them. Where are they going, right? So there's Women in Aviation International, there's the Whirly Girls. Get out in front of these women and these organizations and let them know what you're doing. Let them know, hey, we have a bunch of guys over here and they're great, but do you know what we're doing too? We want you, and invite them to come in. I think that's important. For younger pilots, younger women pilots, educating them on the diversity in aviation, right? There's so many things you can do, and gender has nothing to do with it. But, if you're a maintainer, a fuel handler, a pilot, a dispatcher, whatever, there's a place for you in aviation too. It goes to all children, really. If you don't know it's out there, if you don't know there's an opportunity for it, you're not going to think about it. All right. So just show them hey, we have opportunities. And just get in front of them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
not, but...
I mean, you've done that in a ton of ways. Your books, some different groups that you're a part of. You founded the Space Coast Women in Aviation Alliance. I'm curious to hear what that is and how that's kind of accomplishing some of those goals. Yeah,
well, where I live in the central east coast of Florida, right? There's so much aviation and aerospace where we are. So it's I really wanted to start the organization. I think I called it Lunch with Gals or something at first, but I would meet with a friend for lunch, and it was so nice just as, as a female, to sit at a table with someone and be like, man, this is what's happening and this is what's going on, and I'm frustrated with this, and vent and hug and have a glass of wine and to talk about things. I've always been all my friends have been guys my whole life. I know, but it's fun to get in front of women and see the things that they're going through and just and help each other get through things. And I really wanted an organization where we could just come together and help support each other. Because I also have found, historically, the people that have told me either put me down or said I couldn't do something were usually women, right? I've had plenty of male mentors who have helped uplift me and mentor me, right? Not only because, yes, there weren't a lot of females around, but when I was switching from HR to become a pilot, the women in the HR office were not supportive of my decision. They're like, I don't know if you can handle that. It's going to be too hard. Where all I needed was one woman to say, girl, you can rock this. You can rock it. Yeah. And I didn't have that. And I really wished I did. So the Space Coast Women in Aviation Alliance is a great opportunity for us women to come together and like literally actually support each other. I'm not just nice to your face saying, I'm going to do this for you. I'm actually going to go do it. To come together and say, hey, this is what I do. And hey, how can I help you? And how can you help me to advance, in whatever facet it might be. Maybe I have a hard meeting next Tuesday and I just need someone to call and vent after. Maybe I just need a hug. I don't know. But what can we do to support each other?
Are the people that are part of that organization that you're trying to help, are they already have a foot in the door in aviation? Or are they people that are trying to get into aviation, or both? Who's your audience there?
Great question, Jack. So we run two arms, if you will. One is our older women group, right? So women who are seasoned in the industry, who really want someone else to communicate, who communicate at the same level, right? Especially if they're in a more male-dominated sector. Someone they can just really feel free to vent to, or, hey, I've been thinking about this, or I want to ask for this promotion, or I'm having this trouble with this person at work, and to help navigate some of those challenges together, right? So that's the one arm. It's like women to women kind of mentorship, right, to each other, and vent and to socialize, and then to see how we can help one another. But those same women have so much knowledge and experience that we also want to mentor the younger generation who's coming in, people who have no experience in aviation or are just starting into that sector, to show them that there is a place for them in aviation. Again, there are so many facets. Maybe you don't want to be a pilot, but you love aviation. Well, great. What do you like to do? Oh, I love to draw. Great. You should go into marketing, right? There's tons of aviation art. Someone designed that Z hanging above John's head, right? That's aviation art, right? So there's a place for everybody in aviation. And if people, and I don't care, it's Space Coast Women, but we talk to boys and girls. If there's a place for you in aviation, and we just want to educate you and show you that there are these opportunities out there, because if you don't know, you don't know. Like, I never would have thought I'd be a helicopter pilot. I never saw helicopters when I was little. I mean, a couple Kiwis here and there, but I just didn't even think about it, right? So I just want to expose these young children to aviation. And of course, I love helicopters, so I always bring that dynamic in the room.
Yeah. I thought being a pilot in a helicopter was might as well just be an astronaut, because it's unachievable to me as the one is to the other.
Yeah.
So humanizing it, I think, is really important. We talk about interacting with folks in and around the airport. When you land, if there's a young one near the hangar or at the approach or departure end that you see, and it really brightens your day to go take them a little set of wings, or just go say hi, or just even hover in front of them if you can, and hit the siren or something. Those little things make a huge difference.
You plant that seed early.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, like you said, if you don't know that it exists as a career option, then why would you ever pursue it? And when you look at our industry, whether you're on the crewed side, whether you're a pilot or a crew member of another sort, or if you're a maintainer, or if you're an R&D, or like you said, there's this whole ecosystem of jobs that exist within our industry that need folks.
Yep.
If you don't know about it, you can never even consider that as a career choice. The one thing you've done that I would love to jump into is this book series. It does exactly what we're talking about. It humanizes our industry, and your book on firefighting. I thought we actually talked about this a little bit because of what's happening in LA. And talk about how what you've created is helping to comfort some of these kids in such a time of need and uncertainty.
Yeah. So when it comes to creating Helo Girls, I will tell you, and I think I've mentioned this in other conversations with people, but I don't sleep very well. I just have a hard time falling asleep. My brain it goes out like, what did I do today? And what do I need to do tomorrow? Or, I'm always just constantly thinking. So I started years ago telling myself these stories to help put myself to sleep. And my daughter, who is now 13, when she was little, I was trying to find helicopter books. Like, I just want to find some cool books. And I found one that I had to buy from like eBay, and it was about a dog who heard a noise. And we found at the very end of the book that the noise he heard was a helicopter. And it was really cute. It was like written in the 1960s, cute book, but that's all I could, at the time, I could really find. So now, years later, my son, who's now 7, but when he was born, I was trying to find more books that had helicopters in them. And I found some more. There's definitely more out there. But to me, some of them weren't accurate to the mission. Like there was just missing things, or like the pilot was be the one who was also hoisted down to rescue the whatever. And I was like, well, I love it. I love the book. It's a cute book, written well, but I was like, man, it's not really accurate to what we do. So when I went into creating Helo Girls, I wanted something that was, first of all, realistic to what the mission really is. I'm a safety nerd, so it had to be very safety forward. And why not just have a female pilot? Like, why not? So that's what kind of grew Helo Girls. And so if you get a chance to look at the book, they're very mission forward. They go through the PAVE acronym on a debrief, so pilot, aircraft, environment, and external pressures. And I try to keep that theme through all the books, so there's some structure to that. But it allows, the kids to think about what they're going to do before they go do it. I refer to the child reader as the observer, so it's interactive. They're part of the crew. So when, like Abby, so this is the cover for book 1, the firefighting pilots. And when Abby's out on the mission, she's like, hey, can you locate the fire? Can you locate a water source? Let's talk about any hazards or obstacles before we fill our bucket. Do I have a safe way in and a safe way out? And then they come back and they debrief. Like, was it what we expected it to be? Were we successful? Then, hey, that's great. Like, thank you for being part of the team. So that part's really important. Accurate to the mission, safety forward, and just happens the pilot's a female.
Yeah, that's great. You accomplish so much in those books. I'll admit, I bought, I think it was the firefighting book for my niece for Christmas, and I didn't get a chance to look at it because we instantly wrapped it when we got it and gave it to her. But I'm excited to read through them. Gosh, it just does so much for the kids. And like I mentioned earlier, given what's happening in LA, a lot of kids and parents, I think, are struggling for ways to explain that to children. And I think those books offer some pretty neat opportunities for parents to kind of breach that conversation and ease the children into, well, this is what's happening. You don't have to be afraid type thing. Can you talk about that and some of the intention you had in that book?
All the books will have that same kind of ethos, right? So in aviation, it really is about teamwork, and it's a collaborative effort. So it's an opportunity, especially with what's going on in California, for parents to read a book with their child and say, hey, look, I know we're all experiencing this thing together, but I want you to know that you're not alone, and that there's a whole community of people out there trying to help to make sure you, I, and your school are safe, right? And this is how they're doing that. Again, communication makes or breaks any relationship. If you could talk to your kid in a nice, easy way to show them that, hey, I realize that this is a difficult time. This is what's happening around you, to make sure that all these things are safe. And let's read this book and talk about it. And, at the end, let's have some questions. What did you think about it? What did we learn? It talks about the ground firefighters in there and things like that. So just to really, show kids that, there's a lot of people out there doing some good things to help ensure that they're safe and protected.
That's cool. I love that.
What's the age range you were targeting?
Yeah, so the books are roughly 4 to 8. I will say at Expo last year, it was the gentleman who worked for a flight data monitoring company. He was new to aviation, and he's like, Kodey, I think I'm going to get your book so I learn what you pilots do too. And I was like, that's a really good idea.
That'll work.
Yeah, so each book will feature a different helicopter mission and then a different female aviator from a different demographic. So book 1 is Abby, firefighting, and then you can see book 2 up there is law enforcement, and this is Selma. So it's her experience doing law enforcement. And like I said, I just got the book from the printer yesterday. It was yesterday. Man, time flies.
Yeah.
I will note, because this is something I went back and forth. So our friend Tony Weber, I told you when we were offline at the very beginning, I reached out to him. I was like, I really need to ask your question on this. So usually a flare system, right? You use white hot. Most people use white hot, right? So the black and white. I was like, that is so boring for kids. And so you can also do like the pink hot. So I actually did the FLIR image with all the pink.
That's
but
cool.
I'm like, Tony, are kids, is this going to be okay? Because it's not just important for the kids to like it, but people in my industry to be like, oh yeah, Kodey doesn't know what she's talking about. Why is she using that? Or
well, Tony's kind of a kid, so that was perfect. I mean, to ask my rotator chip Hey, what do you think, Tony? You're kind of like a kid.
You're a kid.
You know?
Would you read this?
He was going to give good advice.
I'm like, no. Sorry, Tony.
I love you, Tony.
We all love Tony. That's just a fact. You know? That's right, Professor.
I love what you're doing with the book series. You talked about last year being AGI and Airbus inviting you to sign books at their booth. Can you talk about that experience and then what you have planned for this year coming up?
It was so amazing. So I'm new to writing books, right? So last year, 2024, January was when the book was published. And so it was really nice and emotional to see something come to fruition. I am not, again, one who is shy. So I'm going to ask, and you can either dismiss me or we have a conversation. And so, things kind of started to unfold with Airbus, and it was just like a cosmic event of conversation that happened to unfold. And yeah, so Airbus purchased a certain amount of books, and they had me at their booth. I talked a bit about the book series. It was really cool. A lot of the stuff at their booth was specific to firefighting, like they had some buckets around the aircraft and things like that. And so at VAI here in 2025, we're going to do the same thing with the law enforcement book. So I'm very excited to be with Airbus once again at Heli Expo, man. It's taking that muscle memory to get past that one. At VAI, I'm very excited.
Yes.
It just shows me that I found a niche. There's definitely a space for this. And yeah, the book is Helo Girls, but I'll tell you, my son, who again is 7, he definitely was a big help in writing the book. And I'd sit with him, my Word document, and I would read it to him, and I would realize I would change an inflection or change some verbiage so he could understand it a little bit better. I'm like, well, then why don't I just write it that way? But he's been a big help. Or my daughter, she's like, well, you mentioned this here, but you didn't talk about it later here. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll need to bring that back up. And
fresh set of eyes. Fresh set of eyes right there.
Right? I'm going to see things the same way.
Well, I'm going to be in line. I'm going to be in line to get it at Airbus for sure, because it's right in my reading level bracket. So I'm ready. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was going to say for the series or the book beyond the one you're writing now, when your son's too old, we can always bring Tony back. And he can help you. Love you, Tony.
I love it. We're laughing about him. I love it. He's a great guy.
He is.
He's the best.
We all love Tony.
The series is really cool. It does have a female pilot, and I've had some people be like, oh, the book is just written for girls. I'm like, no, it's not. The book is not about the pilot. It is about the mission. I don't go out and tell people I'm a female pilot. I'm like, I'm just a pilot.
That's right.
I will say a huge epiphany moment I had was, it's almost maybe been a year now, but my son, he came up to me in the kitchen one day. And he's like, Mommy, he's like, let me preface this first by, my son has seen Top Gun and Maverick more times than I ever will. He knows he wants to be a jet pilot. He's all in. But he came up to me, he's like, Mommy, can boys be helicopter pilots too? Because he's only ever seen me and the book.
Oh, yeah.
And I said,
That's
no,
great.
buddy, it's just for girls.
I
did not say that to him.
I know.
But, it just made me think, if you don't see yourself in something, again, if you don't know you can, you don't know you can.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome. I'm excited to check that out at VAI. I have a hard time saying it too this year. And as folks listen, it should be about a week from now that VAI is in progress. So we'll put some information out over our socials as to where you can find Kodey, where and when at the Airbus booth. And I think you'll be signing books there, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And get there early, because I'll tell you, last year, I think we started at 4, maybe 3:30 or something. I was still signing books when the lights were closing. They were vacuuming the booth.
Yeah. The lights start going out. The vacuum cleaners come out immediately, and you're still signing. That's cool.
We're starting earlier in the day this time, though, and so it'll be a good time. And Airbus, amazing company. They definitely go all out and make it a worthwhile adventure.
Love it. Yeah, that's super cool. One thing that strikes me is I talk to you and learn about you and your background, the stuff that you've done, and there's just, you talk about liking, I'll insert my own word, chaos surrounding you. You thrive under pressure. And then not only have you done all this stuff within your career, but you're also in a doctoral program, and you're also doing a bunch of other things. Can you talk about that doctoral program? And then on top of that, can you talk about the importance of work-life balance and how you've kind of been able to do that with all this stuff going on?
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
In the military, I started through, once I was actually before aviation, I would go to like college courses at night through Vincennes University at a local fire department or sheriff's office with a lot of the other officers. And so I was starting to work on a bachelor's degree. And I ended up getting, an associate's through Vincennes. And then when I kind of stopped going to school I called my undergrad my 20-year degree because I was petrified of calculus and statistics, and I just don't like math in public. So
Yeah.
I stopped going to school, and then it was like 2016. I told myself, and I was like, I have a daughter, and I was like, I need to continue growing to be better for her and to show her that she can grow as big as she wants to. Whatever she wants to do in life, she can do it too. And so I promised myself, I started in at calculus, and then I did a calculus, and I did a stats, and I did a stats, and I got the stuff that scared me out of the way. And the rest of my degree through it all was a lot of fun because it was a more practical application of things I was actually experiencing in the industry. Here I am older, a little bit more accomplished. And so I really enjoyed learning because for me, the stuff I was learning is like I could take that the next day and apply it to what I was doing. So it was really good. So I graduated with my bachelor's in aeronautics with a minor in helicopter safety. And I think it was in 2020. And then I looked at my husband and I was like, well, I'm already working and going to school and the kids. I was like, I'm already in the groove. I was like, I should just continue on with my master's. And he's super supportive. And he's like, if you want to, absolutely. And so I switched from Embry-Riddle to the Florida Institute of Technology. One, it's closer to my home, but two, I just wanted my own educational diversity, right, from a different perspective. And so I finished my master's in aviation safety at FIT in 2022, I think it was. And so I look at my husband, I was like, hey, so I'm in the groove. And I'd done some expert witness stuff in the past, and they definitely like you to have that doctor part on there. So I also was able to, he does finances. So I was able to give him a return on investment, potentially, at more future expert witness work for the doctorate. So yeah, I'm in at FIT for an aviation doctorate program. I now into the dissertation phase, and I'll hopefully graduate June, July, and be done. And then I'm going to be done with school, I think, at least for a little while.
I have a hard time believing that.
Your husband's going, I hope so.
No. Yeah. Then I was like, there's certificated programs out there. And I was like, I really like to do Spanish. And he's like, you never
cool.
quit learning, right? That's whether, and I don't care if it's a formal education, a certificated program, or a trade school. Yeah. I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And I want to be better today than I was yesterday. And for me, education helps that. I grew up, again, a very poor kid. We also didn't have running water or electricity, kind of like what John's going through right now. To me, education meant a lot. I'm the first to graduate with, a bachelor's and master's, and I'll be the first doctor in my family. And
wow. And
I know those things aren't important, but the titles of going to schools, but the continual learning is, I think, in any industry, and I don't, not just in aviation, not just helicopters, any industry, you should be refining your skill, right? Getting better at what you do, improving, or even just bringing your knowledge back to the forefront. Like if you haven't done something in 10 years, do it again, get your recency there. And I love learning. I love education. And it's been a nice trajectory for me.
Yeah. I love what you said. And I 100% agree with you. I think one of the intriguing things about aviation to me is what you said about learning. You've never learned it all in aviation. Mm-hmm. The moment you think you have, it's probably time to leave, right?
Yeah, retire.
But there's so many different facets to learn and things to grasp within this industry that it's just challenging. It never stops that the challenge never stops. So I admire you for your continuation of pursuit of higher education. You know, I stopped at my bachelor's, and I've thought, from time to time about a master's. Doctorate is beyond my level of comprehension. So congratulations. That's huge.
Well, John, I will tell you, it's just one class at a time. It's one class.
That's true.
Online.
Yeah.
At your own pace. I'll talk to you offline after this.
How do you
will you if he or I both do this, will you tutor us in calculus?
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you, statistics is one of my favorites now. It's so weird.
Oh my. Wow, that's a turnaround. It was
is.
the thing scaring you from going, and now it's one of your favorite things.
Yep. So when I think back to flight school, I was not good at instrument holding. Oh my gosh, I hated it. I even asked for a flight instructor change, which usually doesn't happen in the military. I was like, this guy is speaking too high level for me. I can't understand him. And I got a new instructor. And I started to enjoy instrument holding. But I tell you, once you go in the civilian world, I was really afraid of it. And then I just started at the school. I would offer to teach classes. Like, can I teach classes on holding? Can I teach classes on this? And I made it a strength. Yeah. And, things that scare you are usually just because you don't know.
Yeah.
Once you get that under your belt, then it's just a strength.
Yeah. Plus you figured out that math thing that was scaring you is actually something that you need in a practical world of piloting and instructing. And once you were able to apply that topic with real life, it makes it
completely
more
different.
Enjoyable. Do you find that to be true?
No, absolutely, Jack. In fact, I will tell you that, like, had I went to college in the traditional sense, straight from high school, do a bachelor's or a master's, it would mean nothing to me like it does today, because everything I do in class is practical application. It applies to what I do. So, John, one class at a time.
In 30 years, I'll come back with my master's.
You know what? When I tell you, even if you just do one class, like, you learn so much. It's really neat.
I realize we're running out of time here. We've flown through this conversation.
Time flies.
It goes so fast.
Every time. It's crazy.
There's something that I don't want to leave the conversation without asking you about. You earned an award in 2022. It's the Tony Kern Professionalism in Aviation Award. Can you talk about that and what that means to you as a person?
So I love first of all, if you don't know Tony Kern, another great person you should get to know. He's really an awesome gentleman, right? It's given by the National Business Aviation Association, the NBAA, to recognize aviation professionals who demonstrates exceptional professionalism and leadership in the aviation safety realm. So to be nominated for that award and actually to get it was, I work hard. I really do care about our industry. I really do care about helicopters. I care about safety so much that for me, it just showed that the path I'm on is working. It's right. I'm doing the right things, not only for me, but to help others do better at their profession and their goals. So that really was it just showed that my commitment was really good. It's been a positive impact on people and in the industry. And so it was a really good for me to, it was a good highlight for the foundation of my career.
Wow. Think about your career and the people you're impacting now. A lot of people are happy if they can impact one segment of society, whether it's the older segment of society, the middle, or the younger. And you're affecting all three of those different segments, which is really hard to do. So kudos to you for doing that. That's really impressive to me.
Yeah, thank you.
The last question I'll ask, and this is very broad, it comes to advice for entrepreneurs and aviators as they graduate from school or they ponder what to do next. If I'm somebody who's considering going into aviation or considering starting a business as an entrepreneur, what advice would you have for me, being that you've done all these different things?
Yeah, I actually, I put a lot of thought in your questions, ahead of time. And so my advice is to stay curious and to stay persistent. Entrepreneurship is about solving problems and finding a niche, right? As far as the book series, I would go to events and they would not let kids in. I'm like, well, we talk about this huge gap in the industry. but you're not getting, like, you can talk to kids in high school and college, but I'll tell you, most of them already have an idea of what they like, of what they want to do. Doesn't mean you can't change them or bring them over to the industry, but let's plant that seed a lot earlier, right? Find that niche and then build on your expertise. Never stop learning, right? Whether in aviation, there's lots of STEM opportunities, and perseverance in that facet really, takes you a long way. Stay disciplined, right? So I try not to bite off more than I can chew. Like, it might seem like I do a lot, but I watch a lot of TV too sometimes. I'm honest about what I can do. Like, I have a client and say, hey, listen, I can give you 10 hours a month. And another client, you get 5 hours a month. And I work all those. That's how I work with all my clients throughout the month, is I give them an allocated amount of time. I don't overextend myself. I'm not giving you 40 hours a week, because I have 4 or 5 different clients right now. So you get in, you set that expectation up ahead. Embrace learning at every opportunity, John, so you can go back to school. Right? Aviation is challenging, but it's such an incredibly rewarding field. Every time I save the patient at any age, whether they were living or deceased, to bring them back home. If I was able to find someone when we were trying to find, someone who was elderly, the silver alerts that go out, all of those things are super rewarding in our industry, right? And keeping that persistence will definitely take you far.
Gosh, there's so much to unpack there.
Wow.
I love all of it.
Yeah.
Gosh, one thing that kind of stood out is finding your niche. I think, as I was growing up, my mom, she was an entrepreneur inside and out. Like, everything she thought of, she tried to take to the next level, and she had some really great ideas. And I think as a society, a lot of times we're trying to think of the next big thing that everybody's going to want. But I think a lot of times what's more successful is what's one thing you can do that's specific to the skills you have,
Yep.
and the group of people that is your community. So I love that you brought that up. I think it's 100% true. And I think you find a lot of success, both personally and financially, when you focus on those things. You talked about doing the right thing. I feel like we've said a lot. If you're doing the right things for the right reasons, things are going to work out for you,
Yep.
And it's evident through our conversation with you that's 100% what's happened. You've sacrificed a ton to get to where you are. And again, it's really impressive looking back at your background and the different accomplishments and awards that you've won, or earned, I should say, as a result of those sacrifices and the efforts you put forward. So it's been an absolute honor for us to talk to you. Excited to see you at VAI. Would you sign a book for Jack and I? I mean,
I'll consider it. Yeah.
Wow.
No,
Thank you.
absolutely. I'm so excited. I love the series. It's really been a fun passion project. I have learned so much. I'm not a children's book author by education or experience, right? I've just found a spot where I think it fits so well, and to teach kids all the different missions and to expose them. So it's been a lot of fun. Social media is a whole other animal. So
yeah.
learning Instagram and all that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. Jack, any closing thoughts from you, sir?
Wow. This was really great, Kodey. Thank you for joining us. And as soon as John sent me the information about you, I just kept reading and going, hold on, is this the same person? It was like there was like a person that's had multiple lives, and you've excelled at all of them. So that's really cool. And your efforts in all of the fields that you've chosen have been really beneficial to people. Thanks for your service in the military. We can never thank you enough for that. And I look forward to VAI and standing in line and getting my book signed. I'll see all of you that are listening. You better get there ahead of me, because I'm going to be there early.
We're going to push the kids down and get in front of them.
Yeah, get out of the way, kid. I got to get up there and get my book signed. Thank you so much, Kodey. Really, really interesting. And you have a great life story. And I can't wait to see you at VAI.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack and John, for having me here. It's been 5 years in waiting. So
that's right. It was worth the wait for sure.
Well, John was busy with his online classes. So that's,
that's good.
Yeah. By the way, John, I'm sending you the link to Embry Riddle's master's program right now. It's coming right at you.
I'm joking. I will send you links.
Yeah.
Exactly. Them now.
It's all right.
Do it, John.
I can see him not getting away from this. Well, again, it's been an honor. Thank you, Kodey. Thank you, Jack, for joining us. Look forward to seeing everybody at VAI. Don't forget to stop by the Vertical booth to say hello. And until then, we'll catch you later. Cheers.
Thank you. And
Cheers.
see you all later. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking. Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD-500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275heli.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Kodey Bogart as we explored our incredible journey from military service as a Black Hawk pilot to her current role as an industry safety expert and author. Kodey's insights about the critical importance of safety practices in aviation and the vital role helicopters play in emergency response are invaluable, especially in the context of the growing collaboration between drones and helicopters during disasters. Her reflection on community service and hurricane responses emphasized the profound impact aviation can have in times of crisis. Throughout this series, we've shared memorable stories from Kodey's time in flight school and her military deployments, showcasing the strong peer support and camaraderie that come into play in high-stress environments. Her experiences highlight the challenges of transitioning to civilian life and the pressing issues facing law enforcement aviation today, such as recruitment and retention. We also touched upon the importance of advocacy for women in aviation and the significance of Kodey's children's book series, Helo Girls, which aims to educate and inspire the next generation of aviators. Thank you for tuning in. We encourage you to like and subscribe for more insightful discussions and expert perspectives on the Hangar Z podcast. Cheers.